Buenas tardes, compañeras y compañeros. Sometimes when we talk about women, we tend to generalize as if all women are in the same category, but all women are not equal. Particularly in this country, the United States, women are divided by class and by race. Poverty and inequality do not hit all women alike. For example, a white wealthy business executive woman, even if they are not as frequent as men, has much more advantages than the average black or Latino man. In the United States, 1 in 3 people lives in poverty or below poverty. The majority of the poor are women and children, 70%. 42 million women in poverty, and within them, who has the most poverty rates? Black and Latina women. Women are overwhelmingly the low-wage workers. They are 2/3 of the low-wage workers. These jobs tend to be labor-intensive with no benefits, no paid sick days, and no access to health care or affordable child care for their children. The gap in income is staggering. Women of color earn between 55 to 65 cents on the dollar compared to white men. And they usually have more expenses than men when you consider the families of a single mother. We can go on and on with economic data, but today I would like to concentrate on the women who are victims of the state, women who have been killed by the police and women who are in prison. And I want to do that because the government of this country, President Barack Obama, has signed an executive decree sanctioning Venezuela with the blatant lie that Venezuela is a threat to the United States national security. And we ask, who is the real threat to millions of women here, to the poor, and to the people of color here? It is not Venezuela. The eyes of the world have been in this country since August 9. That is the day when Michael Brown, an 18-year-old black youth, was killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri. Hands up, don't shoot, that's what he said. Yet police fired at least 6 times. Then they militarized the city against the thousands of protesters. There was black rage, and a new movement arose, which caused the Black Lives Matter. Then there were more killings by police. In Cleveland, a 12-year-old young child, Tommy Rice, because he had a toy gun in the park. In New York, Eddie Garner, who was taken in video saying, "I can't breathe." In fact, a black person is killed by repressive forces in this country. This democracy, every 28 hours, and their killers go unpunished. That is national security. But black and Latina women also get killed. Like Jessica Hernandez, a 16-year-old who was killed by police in Denver, Tanisha Anderson, Yvette Smith, Miriam Carey, and we can go on and on. There are many, many, many lists, and I'm not going because of the time. Then there are the women who are in prison. These are the women that they usually forget in the presentations of the IWD in this country. The U.S. has the largest prison population in the world. With a population of only slightly over 322 million, the U.S. has 2,193,798 million people in prison. Compared with China, a population of more or less 1.4 billion, there are only 1.5 million people in prison. And that is both men and women. But in the United States, women are the fastest growing segment of the incarcerated population. In the last 25 years, the number of women and girls caught in the criminal justice system has increased tremendously. According to Forbes, magazine Forbes, in 2014, and I'm going to quote, nearly 1/3 of all female prisoners worldwide are incarcerated in the United States. There are 201,200 women in U.S. prisons, representing 8.8% of the total American population. No country incarcerates women more than the United States. According to the ACLU, it says there are more than 1 million women behind bars or under control of the criminal justice system when all forms of correctional supervision, that is probation, parole, jail, and state and federal prison, are considered. 2/3 of women in prison in the United States are women of color. African American women's incarceration rates for all crimes increased by 800%. 800% since 1986, compared to an increase of 400% for women of all races. In Montana, Native Americans are 6% of the population, but Native American women constitute approximately 25% of the total female prisoner population. And recently, if you saw the Oscars, it was dedicated to actress Misty Upman. I don't know if I'm pronouncing her Upham. She was a 32-year-old actress, not Native American, who was killed, and the police never even dare to follow the request from the family that they found. They found her dead days. Girls of color who are victims of abuse are more likely to be processed by the criminal justice system and labeled as offenders than white girls. White girls who are abused have better chance of being treated as victims and referred to child welfare and mental health system. The majority of women prisoners are incarcerated for nonviolent crimes such as prostitution, fraud, and drug offenses. Only 36% of arrested women are arrested for violent offenses. And if you remember a month ago, the case of 2 years ago, 2015, 3 years ago almost, case of Marisa Alexander. This woman, Marisa, she was sentenced to 20 years in Florida for defending herself from her abusive husband. 9 days, just 9 days after giving birth to a premature child, she fired a single warning shot to the roof, into the wall, to halt her abusive partner during a life-threatening beating. The stand your ground, that law in Florida, ruling of self-defense that was used in the case of the murder of Trayvon Martin, the black youth who was killed, was not considered in Marisa's case. She was released in bond in November 2013 and is now in home detention. But while under home detention, she has to pay $105 every week for the use of the ankle monitor, and $500 every other week for the cost of the bond. Many other issues remain to be discussed about women in prison in the United States. I don't want to take more time. Women in shackles giving birth, violence from male guards, which 40% of the guards in female prisons are men. Because there is this law of gender equality. Gender equality is never applied to women, but for this it applies. So they want males to be guards in female prison. That is gender equality in the United States, the country that is threatening Venezuela. Then after release, there is discrimination on jobs, on housing, the denial of public assistance, and so forth. Most of the women incarcerated are for nonviolent, as I mentioned before, crimes such as prostitution, fraud, and drug. And for those with drug offenses particularly, they cannot get food stamps for the rest of their lives, including pregnant women, simply because they were once caught with drugs. Wasn't Clinton, ex-President Clinton, having marijuana because, and he was a president and he's receiving his pension? Yeah. He's not on food stamps. He's received a good pension from the United States. But a woman who has been caught with maybe a little marijuana or whatever it is, even if you're pregnant, you will never, ever in your life receive food stamps in this country. This is the country that dares threat Venezuela and all the things that people have done in Venezuela for the people in the United States. Like, I have friends who say, I am living because I was able to get the citgo oil, because otherwise I would have been dead in the cold of the winter. So who is a threat to national security? Thank you, compañera.